Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Mikanko deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because this deck is an amazing going second build that can easily OTK your opponent. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like in your name, description, every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of Ohime. Ohime is an amazing boss monster of the deck that's actually a searcher. This card has the ability that it cannot be destroyed by battle, and also your opponent takes any battle damage you have taken from battles involving this card, which is such a cool effect because we basically want to hand our opponent a massive monster on the field and then use our copy of Ohime and our other Mikanko monsters to help us go in for game. This card also has a really cool ability. If this card's in your hand, you can actually reveal this card and then add a Mikanko card from your deck to your hand and then discard a card. And quick effect, when this card's on your side of the field, you can actually target an equip spell in your graveyard and equip it to one appropriate monster on the field, which is a really cool ability. We then play 2 copies of Huli. Huli is definitely a 2 of in the build and an amazing card in this deck. This card has the ability, just like all of your other Mikanko main deck monsters besides Ohime, that if this card is not equipped with an equip card, you take no damage from battles involving this card, but if this card is equipped with an equip card, it cannot be destroyed by battle, which is a great effect, and also your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving this card, which is such a cool ability that basically means your opponent's going to take all the damage from battles whenever you battle with your Mikanko cards. Also, this card has a super unique ability that while you control an equip card, your opponent cannot target Mikanko cards you control with card effects, and if either player equips an equip card to this card, you get to add a Mikanko trap from your deck to your hand, which is such a cool effect. We then play 2 copies of Hari. Hari is great in the deck as a 2-0 because this card actually helps us instantly get to our copies of our Mikanko equip spells, as if an equip card becomes equipped to this card, you can actually add a Mikanko equip spell from your deck to your hand, which is an amazing effect. We then play a single copy of Nini. Nini is really good as a 1-of in the build because this card is an amazing disruption against the opponent, as this card has the ability that during your opponent's turn, while this card is equipped with an equip card, quick effect, you can actually target a face-up monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase, which is a really interesting effect. We then play a single copy of Maximus. We do play a small Dogmatica package in this deck, so we really don't need the extract outside of Maximus and the Nadir Servant cards in this deck. This card is really good to help us banish your monster from our graveyard that's a Fusion, Synchro, Exy, or Link from the graveyard to special summon out this card. Then it lets us send 2 monsters from our extract to the graveyard, and it makes our opponent send 2 monsters from their extract to the graveyard, which is really good for us because we can send cards to the graveyard like Herald of the Arclight, so we can search out Ohime, or we can send cards to the graveyard like Elder and Tennis to be able to pop cards on the field. We then play 3 copies of Lava Golem. Lava Golem is amazing in this deck as a 3-of to basically just out 2 monsters on your opponent's side of the field, which is just so cool to be able to do. Also, during your standby phase, meaning the opponent's standby phase, since they will control this card, they take 1,000 points of damage, which is amazing. So just in case we don't OTK the opponent, it'll probably end the game with the burn damage from Lava Golem, which is so cool. We then play a single copy of the Thunder King Kaiju. The Thunder King Kaiju is absolutely massive, which is why I play this card as a 1-of in the build, so we can basically hand this card to our opponent and OTK. We then play a single copy of Dolgaran. Dolgaran's just really good as well in the deck as a 1-of. And then finally play a single copy of Gamma Seal. These are the kaijus that I really like to play. You can basically play any 3 kaijus you want in this position, but I felt like since playtesting this deck, that 3 copies of Lava Golem and then 3 kaijus is perfect for this deck to be able to basically out any monster on the field, with your copies of your kaijus outing decks that just put 1 monster on the field, and Lava Golem outing monsters that have, or decks that basically just swarm the field, all sorts of different monsters, but it makes it super easy to have an attack target on the field so you can swing in for game. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity is amazing in the deck because, again, we really don't need the extra deck all that much, so this card just helps us dig in the deck for the exact card we need. We then play a single copy of Snatch Steal. Snatch Steal is crazy because we have cards in this deck that can basically just instantly get to this card, which is absolutely crazy, so we can take control of our opponent's monsters, so this card is absolutely broken. We then play a single copy of Axe of Fools. Axe of Fools is really good in this deck as a 1-of because the equipped monster gains 1,000 attack and its effects are negated, which is a great effect to basically just use this card as a disruption, which is absolutely insane to be able to do in this deck. To basically just equip this to an opponent's monster so that we can basically just negate that monster's effects. We then play a single copy of Double-Edged Sword. Double-Edged Sword is amazing in this deck and usually how we OTK the opponent because it basically makes it so our opponent takes their damage and our damage as well and increases the attack points of one monster they have on the field by 2,000 points, which is crazy powerful. And this card is the ability you can only control one of this card and the equipped monster gains 2,000 attack. Also, both players take any battle damage from attacks involving the equipped monster. But since our Mikanko monsters say that our opponent takes our damage, they take their damage plus our damage, which is insane for this card to be able to do. We then play a single copy of Fire Dance. Fire Dance is really good as a 1-of because this card lets us special summon a Mikanko monster from our hand or graveyard, and if you do equip it with this card, then you can special summon a monster from your opponent's graveyard to their field, but its effects are basically negate its effects. Then the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is such a cool effect to basically just instantly make sure our opponent's going to have a monster on the field so we can swing through it. We then play a single copy of Rondo. Rondo is really good as a 1-of in the build, and you only really need a single copy of this card. This card can only be equipped to an opponent's monster, and it has the ability that while you control a Mikanko monster, you take control of that equipped monster, and neither player can activate its effects, which is not that big of a deal, so you basically just use this card like a Snatch Steal, which is really, really cool. We then play a single copy of the Green Dance. This card is great as a 1-of in the build as well, because the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects, and you can only use each of the following effects card once per turn. Then at the end of the damage step, if your Mikanko monster battled, you can actually target one card on the field and return it back to the hand. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can actually target a Mikanko monster in the grave and special summon it. And if you do, equip this card to that monster, but banish it when it leaves the field, which is such a cool effect to make sure that you're going to be able to get your Mikankos on your side of the field. But the thing I love about this card is you basically just attack, bounce your kaiju back, and then during the main phase too, if you didn't OTK, you can re-kaiju your opponent and give them another kaiju, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Water Arabesque. Water Arabesque is the best equipped spell for all of the Mikanko cards and an absolutely amazing card. This card has the ability the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects, and also during your main phase, you can special summon a Mikanko monster from your hand or deck with a different original name than the equipped monster, and if you do, equip this card to that monster and return the original monster that was equipped to this card basically back to the hand, which is a great effect to basically equip to this to an opponent's monster, and then bounce that monster and special summon a Mikanko from the deck, basically using this card almost like an E-Telly and a bounce all in once, which is amazing. This card is so good as a 3 on the deck, and basically how we get all of our plays going, and we can basically double kaiju our opponent, because we can kaiju first, equip this card to an opponent's kaiju, then basically bounce that kaiju, special summon a Mikanko, and then equip this card to the Mikanko that we special summoned, which is so cool. We then played 2 copies of Great Ceremony. Great Ceremony is great, and actually I always summon another copy of Ohime, so this card is definitely a 2-of in the build. We then played 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. Preparation of Rites is great because it actually searches our copy of Ohime directly from our deck to our hand. We then played 3 copies of Hidden Armory. Hidden Armory is insanely powerful in this deck, because we really don't even need our normal summon in this deck, which is so cool. This card lets us send the top card of our deck to the graveyard and then equip an equip spell, or you get to add an equip spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand, but you cannot normal summon the turn you activate this, which is totally fine, because we basically just grab our copy of Water Arabesque, equip it to an opponent's monster, and we just get to instantly summon the exact Mikanko we want from our deck, which is so cool, which is why I play Hidden Armory in this deck, and it's such a powerful card. We then play 3 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is great in this deck as a 3 of, just to basically always draw 2, especially since we really don't need the extract in this build. So this card just basically draws 2 cards, which is so cool about this card. We then play 3 copies of Nadir. Nadir is really good as a 3 of in the build, as this card lets us send a monster from our extract to the graveyard. Then we get to add our copy of Maximus from our deck to our hand. And we have a lot of cards in the extract we can send to the graveyard to get some really cool graveyard effects, like sending Elder Internist to pop a card, or even sending Garua to the graveyard so we can get a draw, which is just really, really nice. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to start with a single copy of Rivalry. Rivalry is really good as a 1-of in the build, and just an awesome card overall. Then if you control a Mikanko monster, you can target a face-up monster on the field and equip it with 1 equip spell from your deck that can be equipped to it, which is an insane ability to be able to use, especially since you can basically just instantly equip a copy of Snatch Steal to a monster on the field, which is absolutely broken. And an equip spell is sent to your graveyard. While this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card and then target a quit spell in the graveyard and add it back to your hand so you can use it all over again. We then play a single copy of Spirit Walk. Spirit Walk is really good in this deck. It's a 1-of as well. This card lets you target a face-up monster your opponent controls and equip an equip spell, or basically equip that face-up monster to a Mikanko monster you control as an equip spell. Then if a ritual monster card is on the field, you can inflict damage, 500 points damage to your opponent for each equip spell that you control, and you can manage the card in the graveyard to special summon 1 of your Mikanko monsters that's banished or in your hand, which is a great ability to be able to use. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with Herald of the Arclight. I really like playing 2 copies of Herald in the deck. Since we are playing a Pot of Extravagance build, you're going to see a lot of 2-ofs and basically just toolbox cards, because the entire extract is basically just toolbox for cards you can send to the graveyard off Nadir and your copy of Dogmatica, or your copy of Maximus. So your copy of Herald of Arclight is just really good in the deck, because when it does touch the graveyard, it will actually search your copy of Ohime, which is really, really good. We then play a single copy of Wind Pegasus. Wind Pegasus is a great card to be able to send to the graveyard off your copy of Nadir, so you can search out your copy of Maximus, because this card actually can banish itself in the graveyard to target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. We made a single copy of Golden Cloud Beast. This card is great as a 1-of in the deck, because this card has the ability, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and return it back to the hand. So you can basically kaiju your opponent, activate Nadir, send this card to the graveyard, search out your copy of Maximus, and then once you do, you can basically bounce your kaiju back to your hand and then kaiju your opponent all over again, or even use Lava Golem that way, which is really insane. We then play 2 copies of Elder Internist, because it pops cards on the field when it touches the graveyard. 1 copy of Garua. Garua is just really good overall in the build, because if it does touch the graveyard, it will let you draw a card. But a little bit of a downside of this is when you play cards like Extravagance, you really don't want to play this card. You won't want to send it to the graveyard, so you want to send something like a Wind Pegasus to the graveyard instead. We then play a single copy of Fortune Tune. Fortune Tune just helps us go for a copy of Zeus. 1 copy of Downer Magician. Downer Magician is really good in the deck, as one to basically get an additional material under Zeus. And then a single copy of Zeus. Zeus is really good as a 1-of in the build to basically just board wipe the field. And this is basically just toolbox, just in case you need it. We then play a single copy of Typhon. Typhon's really good in the deck as a 1-of to basically just make this card, especially since we're playing a going second build. You can basically just use this as a skill drain for 3,000 or higher attack with monsters, plus it's a balance, which is just really, really nice. We then play a single copy of Dynamundo. Dynamundo's a great option just in case you need it. 1 copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight's basically double interruption. 1 copy of Blockade Borg. Blockade Borg is great in this deck as 1 because it protects your face-up spells on your side of the field, so it basically protects your back row. And then finally, a single copy of IP, so we can go into SP during the opponent's turn, just in case we go first. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you really enjoy this. Deck is so fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a Mikanko deck before, you should definitely give this deck a try, because it's insane how powerful this deck is, and it's just so fun to basically just OTK your opponent, give them a big monster, and then swing into it, and your opponent take the damage instead of you, which is so fun. So that's gonna be this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad. We'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.